What if the problem isn't that God stopped speaking? What if the problem is you've been listening for the wrong sound? You prayed, you waited, you showed up again and again, and the ceiling stayed silent. And somewhere in that silence, one question started forming. Quiet at first, then louder than anything else in your life. God, do you still hear me? By the end of this video, you'll see why some of the closest people to God experienced His deepest silence, and why that changes everything. Here's the assumption many of us make without realizing it, that silence means rejection. You've been treating them as the same language, but they're not. Imagine two believers, both praying for the same breakthrough, both waiting, both hearing nothing back. Daniel slowly stops reaching, not loudly, just quietly disengaging, the way you stop calling a friend who never calls back. And sometimes the silence lasts long enough that we begin to wonder if we've imagined the whole relationship. He decides God has moved on. So he moves on too. Ethan keeps showing up, not because he feels anything, just because something in him refuses to let silence write the ending before he's waited long enough to understand it. That idea isn't new. Scripture gives us an example. There was a prophet named Elijah who had just won the greatest victory of his life. Fire fell from heaven in front of an entire nation. And the very next day, he's running for his life, alone in a cave, wanting to die. God tells him, "Go stand on the mountain." A great wind tore the mountains apart, but God wasn't in the wind. Then an earthquake. God wasn't in the earthquake. Then fire. God wasn't in the fire. And after all that noise, came something the Hebrew text is famously hard to translate. Many English Bibles call it a gentle whisper. Others call it a sound of sheer silence. God's presence wasn't revealed through spectacle. It was revealed through quietness. He didn't skip the mountain. He skipped the noise. God didn't become present after the silence ended. He revealed himself within it. The cave wasn't evidence that God had stepped away. It became the place where Elijah discovered that God's presence wasn't dependent on dramatic signs. That's why silence can feel so confusing. Sometimes the season that feels spiritually empty is the very place where God is drawing closest. But if silence can actually be holy, why does it hurt so much? Jesus himself experienced this kind of silence, not from a distance, but at the deepest point of his own suffering. On the cross, he cried out words that weren't new. He was quoting the opening line of an ancient psalm, my God, why have you forsaken me?" His first listeners would have recognized the entire psalm, not just its opening sentence. But the psalm doesn't end in despair. It ends with confidence that God had not turned away after all. If Jesus could pray those words without losing the Father's love, then your unanswered prayers are not proof you've lost it either. Long before psychology gave it a name, the Bible described something about the human heart. Somewhere inside every one of us is a fear most of us never name, that if someone we love goes quiet, we've lost them. We confuse silence with absence because we've never learned that love can be quiet without leaving. So we do exactly what Daniel did. We mistake distance for disconnection. That's why Scripture so often compares spiritual growth to seeds. You don't hear a seed growing underground. You don't see any movement at all. And yet, in that exact silence, roots are forming. The part no one can see, the part that makes everything above the surface possible. Long before anything breaks through the surface, something invisible has already changed below it. Silence, in Scripture, is rarely empty. It's usually where the roots are. Maybe you've been waiting for God to speak louder, while He's inviting you to grow quieter. Some truths don't survive noise. They only arrive in stillness. Daniel thought silence meant God had left. Ethan discovered something different. God hadn't changed. The way they interpreted the silence had. One walked away before the whisper. The other stayed long enough to hear it. So here's your one challenge tonight. Don't try to escape the cave too quickly. Sit there for 5 minutes with God. Don't ask for answers. Just ask for His presence. If you've been asking, God, do you still hear me? Remember this. The cross has already shown that God has not turned away from you. Silence is not proof that you've been abandoned. Sometimes it's simply the place where faith learns to hear. The whisper was always there. The mountain was never empty. If this reached something in you, tell me in one word. What are you waiting for God to speak into?